Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I am Joey Calvo, and I apologize for being a little late. Um, Today, I decided to do an impromptu podcast to give you an idea of what's going on with this podcast coming up soon. So, we have some great podcasts coming up starting next week. We have two next week. We have one the following, and then one more after that, and then who knows what will happen from this point in. Um, Coming up soon. So, hopefully everybody is enjoying their day. It is very cool out here in Philadelphia, and I'm still having problems with my right knee. Um, in I do have some pain. Of course, I'm gonna have some pain. Um, but this morning when I stepped out, I it started to affect my back, so I'm starting to get a little worried. Hopefully, when I go back to work tomorrow, my back won't hurt. Um, so yeah, like I said, we have some great podcasts coming up over the next 3 weeks. Um, we have 4 coming up on Monday, September 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Utkarsh Narang, and we're going to be chatting with him. And then on next Thursday, September 12th, we have John Lunger, and we're going to chat. Wait one moment. John Lugier is a animation, does animation, and he is going to explain about his career as well. And then on Tuesday, September 17th, and John Lugier will be on September 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. September 17th, we have Keeper Katria Whitney at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are going to talk possibly domestic violence in a way with him. And then on Monday, September 23rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time is Hannah Parry. And this is a rescheduled. And she's an author. And also, just to let you know, we keep her on the 17th. That is also from a rescheduled date. So, as this podcast has been going, I tell you off and on how, where it's going, thinking this is going to end and so on. And I've introduced you many times, and you seen that the podcast actually has a huge fan, a very huge fan. Um, huge fan, huge supporter. And she's a real life superhero. Yes, I'm going to bring her up again. And her name is American Fox. So this is American Fox. One moment. So, American Fox, like I said, is a real life superheroine, fights crime. Well, when she's not fighting crime, she's been a big supporter of this podcast, and she has kept me encouraged to keep this podcast going. So, just bear with me one moment. There we go. I actually forgot one little thing here. There we go. All right. So, American Fox, like I said, has been the podcast's number one fan, number one supporter, and was my friend. And the reason why I'm saying was my friend is because I kind of destroyed the friendship. But that's who I've been. But American Fox has been the greatest encouragement for this podcast, for me to keep this going. So I've been working on getting so many people. I mean, I went all out last night, reaching out to people. And I actually met someone today who had a story, and she's a cool person, and I'm hoping she decides to come on the podcast. I mean, it would have been great to have American Fox on the podcast, because then she can tell you everything about her. But that will not be happening, unfortunately. But you can follow her on Twitter, on X, at American Fox 4. Okay. or on Instagram at American Fox 12018. She loves chatting about superheroes. She would love to have real people chatting with her. And I mean real people. You know, and then once you get to know her, she'll share more about herself. She does not have a secret identity. She is American Fox 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And like I said, when she's not fighting crime, she has been there for me, bringing questions for our guests that we've had, and keeping this podcast going. And if this podcast should end, I will always be thankful of American Fox. Not just for the support she's been and the fan she's been, but the friend she was. I mean, how can you not be friends with a superheroine? How can you? But of course, my mistake was being greedy and wanting more. And I was fighting tooth and nail within myself about it. And I messed up again, but I messed up big time. And this time there's no possibility of retrieving the friendship. She might try to get it back, but I've given up. And it's not her fault. So if you do decide, okay, to chat with American Fox on Instagram or on Twitter, please do not bash her. Okay, do not, say, why did you... Don't blame her for my mistakes. Okay? Be friendly with her. Reply to her reposts on Twitter. Reply to her. This is actually her profile picture on Instagram and on X. Comment on it. I mean, she's truly a beautiful person. And that's one thing I will never forget. I mean, you will never meet a truly amazing, wonderful, extravagant superheroine than American Fox. I mean, I had the best thing in the world to me. And and excuse the language, because I don't edit these videos, I fucked it up. I mean, I could have had opportunities in the future. I fucked it up. I really did. But one thing that I will say that American Fox has kept me going, even though we're no longer friends, has been to keep this podcast going. So that's the only encouragement that I've kept from the friendship. So like I said, I was over the past couple of days trying to get more guests, especially with October. I reached out to so many people, and I met this, like I said, I met this young lady today, and as a and I was on Instagram, so a lot of people that I reached out to invite to come on this podcast were on Instagram, and this one stood out in particular. Like I said, got back to me today, and was like, didn't think that anybody would want to see her on a podcast. I said, I think so. And I kind of encouraged this person. So I'm hoping that this person comes through and does come on the podcast, because this person has a story. And that's what I like to do. I like to share everyone's story. I tell you the story with American Fox. Okay. But this person on Instagram goes by Southern Sherry, and I delved a little bit into her profile, and that's how I found the story. And hopefully, like I said, she comes on the podcast and tells it to us, because I'd like to learn about that. I mean, there was a lot. The one that I saw really got to me, and I was like, I want to know. I'd like to hear this story. But as I got to know more, or got to find out about that, she's also an entrepreneur. In a way, she does affiliate marketing, and she had so much. I mean, there's so much that could be shared. Just like with American Fox, she could share so much with you if you get to really know her. You talk superheroes with her, and she loves hearing superhero opinions. So hopefully, like I said, Southern Sherry will come on the podcast and will chat with us and get to know her. And who knows? Maybe she could do her own podcast. I actually did get back to her, and I said, listen, I think you could do a podcast too. For what she does on social media right now, you could turn that into a podcast and use that for a podcast, And if you want to learn how to do a podcast, put it in the comments, because you can actually start a podcast for free. This podcast, originally, we started it on Anchor.fm, which is now Spotify for podcasters. Well, the reason why we're not on the Anchor.fm platform anymore is because they changed the way you record your podcasts. So I couldn't I couldn't do it that way anymore because it was easier for me to, as I was doing the YouTube live stream, I was recording at the same time. I mean, I could still do it, but there's an extra step now you have to take to doing it. So, but I definitely will say, if it wasn't for American Fox, this podcast could be over with. I mean, I've given up. I was giving up. I still feel like giving up, but I've got that little push in the back of my mind from a former friend saying, "Keep the podcast going. You make a difference," and I've learned that. There's so much that you could learn when you do these things. I mean, while doing these podcasts for 5 years and been on YouTube for 4, one thing I could say is you can learn so much. As you learn so much, you make new friends, you get support. I mean, so much goes on. So much really goes on. And over the 5 years that I've done this podcast, I've made friends with a renowned model, a legendary model at that. I'm friends with a smooth jazz guitarist who's been on this podcast twice. I've made friends with authors. I'm made friends with some adult stars. Some that have, and they haven't even been on the podcast yet. And I had made friends with a real life superhero. So, I mean, you pick up so much during the time. And one thing through all that is believing in you. And believe it or not, American Fox believed in me. Like I believed in her. And I will always believe in American Fox. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of my life. I can believe in people because I know people can do what they want to do. Believing in myself, that's a whole different story. I mean, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. So I've been my own worst enemy, but I've also put myself at a level to where it's hard to break. But I will say, American Fox took a good shot at it and almost broke it. Well, she did break it. I wound up rebuilding it. I rebuilt the wall. And I know if American Fox really wanted to, she could break that wall down again. Because of the strength she has in her. And like I said, if it wasn't for American Fox, this podcast would have been over a long time ago. So definitely check her out on X at American Fox 4 or on Instagram at American Fox 12018. It got cut out on the screen, but it's at American Fox 12018 on Instagram. Thank you so much for being loyal fans and supporters of this podcast. I will see you guys all on Monday, September 9th, when we have Utkarsh Narang at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. God bless you all. Take care.